Book One, Chapter 1 of Round the Block. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Round the Block, an American novel by John Bell Bouton. Book First, New Year's Day. Chapter 1. The Block. On the east side of the block were 4 brownstone houses, wide, tall, and roomy. Seen from the street, they had the appearance of not being inhabited. In the upper stories all the curtains or blinds were closely drawn. In the lower story, the heavy lace that hung in carefully careless folds on each side of the window seemed never to have been disturbed since it left the upholsterer's hands. Whatever life and motion there might have been in the basement were sheltered from observation by conical firs or square-clipped box borders, set out on strictly geometrical principles in each of the 4 front yards. The doors were ponderous and tight-fitting, as if they were never meant to be opened, and the vivid polish of their surfaces showed no trace of human handling. No marks of feet could be detected on the smooth, heavy flagstones which led up from the sidewalk, or on the great steps flanked by massive balustrades. The 4 mansions, in their new, lofty, and apparently tenantless state, looked like the occasional residences of people for some purpose of ceremony, rather than the dear homes of the small, loving, domestic circles that really lived there. Such was the outer view of the east side of the block, and it is the only view that the reader of this book will get, for it is the author's intention profoundly to respect the select seclusion of the occupants. Now the west side of the block was in all respects exactly opposite to the east side. The houses were built of bricks, dingy with the whirling dust of 20 years. 2 of the 3 stories swarmed with women and children, always visible at all seasons, and the lower story was devoted to some kind of cheap trade. Wholesale business is gregarious in its ways, but it is the habit of retail business to scatter, so as to present, in the same neighborhood, no 2 people in exactly the same line. Thus it happened that, on the west side of the block, there was only one dry goods dealer, whose shop front and awning posts were festooned with calicoes and other fabrics, ticketed with ingeniously deformed figures, and bearing some attractive adjective, expressing the owner's private and conscientious opinion of their excellence. There was one bootmaker, who strung up his products in long branches like onions, and although his business was not at all flourishing, solaced himself with the reflection that he had a monopoly of it on the block. There was one apothecary, between whose flashing red and yellow lights and those of his nearest rival there was a desirable distance. A solitary coffin-maker, a butcher, a baker, a newspaper vendor, a barber, a confectioner, a hardware merchant, a hatter, and a tailor, each encroaching rather extensively on the sidewalk with the emblems of his trade, rejoiced in their exemption from a ruinous competition. The only people on the block whose interests appeared to clash were the grocers, who flanked either corner, and made a large and delusive show of boxes, barrels, and tea-chests, and it was strongly suspected that they were identical in interests, under different names, and maintained a secret league to catch all the custom of the vicinity. The south side was a gradation of buildings, from the 2-story brick grocery on the west corner to the grandest of the stone mansions on the east. With the exception of 2 or 3 houses built in the early history of the block, and occupied by obstinate old proprietors, it presented such a regularly ascending line of roofs that a giant could have walked upstairs from one end to the other. Although each house was built upon a plan peculiar to itself, and supposed to reflect the long-cherished views of the original owner, there were certain resemblances among them. This was sometimes the effect of a jealous rivalry, sometimes of imitation. In 1 dozen houses there was a costly struggle for supremacy in window curtains, In another dozen, the
Sample complete. Ready to continue?